Nokia 5110.
Sorry.
Oh! Whack it out.
I was giving out
Looks a bit like this.
3 or 4 months ago
Oh, no,
in the
no.
box, brand new.
All right. Thanks for coming along tonight for our August presentation night. August being the Remembrance Day month, contest, the main contest in the Australian calendar. The committee thought we would get along a couple of seasoned contesters to give us a bit of a talk, and Martin's going to give us a bit of a talk on HF contesting, and then Richard's going to give us a talk on the VHF and above contesting. So without further ado, over to Martin.
Thank you, Justin, and welcome to the presentation. The first picture up there is just to demonstrate my qualifications for talking to you about HF contesting. Those are plaques for winning international awards of one sort or another. Whoops. Up and down, apparently. No. Who's sabotaged the computer already?
You just like having your
Try enter. Here we go. Sorry. First rule of any contesting really is BIC, bum in chair. The more time you spend operating, the higher your score. It's not a linear relationship, but it is a relationship, and very often the difference between two stations at the end of the contest might be just a couple of contacts or a couple of multipliers. Make sure you're comfortable for long periods. Not too soft a chair, so you fall asleep. And it's quite good to stand up some of the time. Make sure the environment is good. One of the better investments I made at my VK5GN contest station was an air conditioner for the shack. Review your diet. Avoid anything stodgy and fatty foods, which will make you go to sleep. If caffeine keeps you awake, use caffeine. I like chocolate, but you know, that's me. Bathroom breaks, keep food and liquid intake to a minimum. You don't need to go out to the loo too often. I'm going to tell you about some people who made some very large scores later on. And one of those people never leaves the shack. He drinks from the bottle and then he fills the bottle. Well, I'm never sure quite, but there we go. Use headset or a boom microphone. Never, ever, ever use a hand microphone for contesting. You will get RSI of the hand or something equally as awful. See if this will work again. Oh, it does. Planning for what you're going to do. Read the rules. Read the rules again, because contest committees have a habit of changing things from year to year. And I've been caught out myself a couple of times when they've changed the time of the contest and I've come on and said, oh, why is everybody, they're not supposed to be on for another half hour? Okay. Now, different operators do their planning differently. Some plan every quarter hour what band they're going to be on, what time, you know, what are they going to point the beam, blah, blah, blah. I'm more reactive. I like to listen for a few weeks before the contest and get a feel for how the bands sound. I'll speak a little more about that later. I then make a decision about where I'm going to start, and then I have some triggers along the way. If my running rate goes below 40, now running is when you call CQ and people are calling you. So if I'm making less than 40 contacts in the hour, I start reviewing where I'm at. Either I'm on the wrong band, or if I'm on the right band, maybe I should be moving around and searching and pouncing. I've developed the skill of tuning around so that I can do about 60 an hour tuning around. And I know from my previous listening to the bands whether the band is opening, closing, opening to a particular place, turn the beam, can hear the change in noise, and that's where it's opening to. It's hard to describe that feel. I've been in contests where I've been contesting away on 20 metres, and I feel like I'm Harry Potter or somebody sitting up in the sky looking down on the world and where signals are coming from and how strong they are, and I'm just sensing how that is happening. You can forecast band conditions using software, but I just find that my ears are better. You need to learn about propagation. Now that applies very much to international contests, but also to local contests, to our RD contests, for example. There's a blind spot between where the ground wave finishes and the first sky wave lands. Now if you can fill up that gap, there are signals to be made, because sometimes that gap, sitting in that gap, is Melbourne. And you need to be able to work Melbourne. So the trick there is to have a thing called NVIS, near vertical incidence, something or other, which will help you to go straight up and straight down, rather than up and down in an angle. Here's, for international contesting, here's a Hobart-centered map of the world. So we're here. And it looks quite good, really, because everything's nicely spread around, you know. Just easily go from one to the other. They're a long way away, but they're spread around. If you take a look at the map centered on London, or in this case, Los Angeles, you suddenly find that Australia is sort of at the ends of the universe. Not quite as bad as New Zealand, which is spread out like a thin line over there. But what to remember about this is when you're operating on the band and you're hearing that W6 calling CQ, and you call him and he doesn't even hear you. You call again, he doesn't even hear you. And the reason would be that he's probably working Japan. Now if he beams directly to Japan, and he's got something like a 4-element beam, which is about a 60-degree angle, then if you come back 30 degrees here, you're not in his passband of his antenna. He's running 3 or 4 times as much power as you are. So you're already a few dBs down because of power. You're going to be a few more dBs down because you're coming in on the side of his beam. And what you've got to hope is that the guy has enough brains to set his beam so that he's just got Japan, and that'll give him a chunk of Australia. Then what we in VK7 have to hope is that somebody in VK4 works him, and so he has trouble with the VK4, so he spins the beam a little bit, and then you jump in. But you've got to have those sort of things in mind before you're really successful at working some of these stations. We have the advantage of VK7 that we're rare. Onto an operating technique. Remember that this is one of the very few sports in the world where the blind novice plays on exactly the same field as the expert. So it's like us driving our little sedan car on the same racetrack as a Formula One machine. And if you think the Formula One driver is going to be really tolerant of what you're doing, you're kidding yourself. And the basic rule on contests is the station calling CQ dictates how it's played. So if they're running fast, then respond the same way. CQWW7GN, KW5 USA. KW5 USA, 5930. 5904, VK7GN. So that would be a sort of rapid exchange. Now, sometimes in the RD contest particularly, which is a sort of billed as a friendly contest, and it's one I go on principally to find out who's still alive. So, you know, the CQer might be doing this kind of thing. Yeah. Hi, Bob, you're 5930. Now, if the CQer does that, you can go back and give your name and be a bit slow. But be aware that the CQ station may change its tune. Because I'll be operating like that, and then the pile-up of stations calling me gets bigger. Then I'm going to flash, bang, and I'm going to be doing 5930, 5930. Now, calling CQ, the main problem is finding a clear frequency in any large contest. Now, it's nice when we have things like the Oceania contest where we can call CQ, and the others shouldn't really be called CQ, they should be looking for us. Phonetics. Use the standard phonetic alphabet. It's in all the handbooks. Don't get clever with it. But have a secondary one. Now, the standard one for my call is Golf November. But Golf has a problem that it's soft and it gets lost. So my alternate is Germany, Norway. And it's amazing how many people who don't get it first time, and I use the Germany, Norway, come back and give it me as Germany, November. Yeah, so, you know, you're communicating. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to communicate. Now let's go back to finding a clear frequency. Be aware that what sounds like a clear frequency may not actually be a clear frequency. There may be somebody operating on that frequency in another part of the world who's dropping a huge signal into the part of the world that you want to work. So you can call CQ till the cows come home and nobody's hearing you. And it is possible to operate a frequency with two people using the same frequency, working the same zone. I had an example of this on 10 meters some number of years ago when 10 meters was wide open. And I was banging away, working them quite fast, but it was clear there was something else on the frequency. Didn't matter, I was still keeping going quite fast. Everything was going well. And then I was working Europeans, and then a station started to appear within the gaps of the Europeans. And eventually it turned out it was K1AR, who's a friend of mine over in America. And we were both operating on the same frequency and had been for about 2 hours. We both made something like 200 or 300 contacts while we were both using the same frequency. So it can happen well, and we just sort of each moved a little bit either way and got on with it. So don't assume that when a station suddenly appears on your frequency that he's trying to pinch the frequency. He might have been there just as long as you have. And never ever get into a frequency fight. It is a complete waste of time. Neither of you are going to win, so just move. There are some tricks you can use. One of the things not to do is go on a round frequency. So 14200. I mean, you hear them all the time in normal conversation. That's where they go. 14200, 14205, 14210. Me, I never do. I don't think my radio will operate on a round frequency. What I do is I go on to something like 142777575, and I call CQ there. If I don't get any joy, I move up a couple of cycles. Not very much, just a smidgen. And I keep moving up a smidgen until I get to another round number, which means, forget it. You're not going to get a frequency in here. But very often you do, because if you can just slide in that gap between the Q or M, and that's what you're trying to do with just moving a little bit. It doesn't need much, because these days the filters in radios are very, very good. So you can slip outside the filter and they can hear you again. Fred Lawn always says K3ZO. He said, if you can't stand the noise, get out. Because you will not have a clear frequency. If every amateur in the world comes on, there's no clear frequencies. And if you get stuck, you can always go right at the extremes of the band. That's another way to find a frequency. Spotting networks have really made a mess of all this, because it now has introduced an element of luck. If you get spotted and continually spotted, then you can hold a frequency into Europe, no problem. But if you don't get spotted, somebody else will be doing it. So S&P, we talked about searching and pouncing and CQ. S&P is by nature slower, but you may come across more multipliers that way. On a normal day, the reasonable band opening on SSP, I can get about 60 stations an hour into the log, whereas running I can do about 120 per hour. My top rate has been 240. Now, what are the best rates in the world? Okay, high power SSB, 407 per hour. Low power SSB, 390 per hour. QRP, 289 per hour. Here's why, here's how. This is minute number 4 from 8 Papa 5 Alpha. Right? Those are all minute 4. There's 10 contacts in 1 minute. But look where they all are. W, Canada, W, 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 W. They all speak real good English, and they're all aware of what's going on with the contest. Now, if you try and do that into Europe, good luck. In 1999, EA8BH with N5TJ as op scored 10,253 QSOs. That is an average over 48 hours of 213 contacts per hour. That's the average contacts. He's one of the guys, by the way, that uses the bottle 2 ways. He never leaves the rig. CN2CO won in 2018 with 6177 QSOs, and I put those up just to show the difference between good conditions and bad conditions.
Which contest are you talking about?
CQ Worldwide. Now let's be realistic about Zone 30. We're at the back end of the universe, and VK7 is even further at the back end of the universe. But let's see what we can do. VK5GN in 1999 averaged 61 QSOs per hour over the whole contest. That still is the Zone 30 all-band high-power record. Again in 2000 they did pretty much the same, 59.75. In 2002 again, 59.9. So it seems as though that's kind of the limit. There I had monoband beams at 60 feet on all the bands. And I had a 100-foot mast for 160 and blah, blah, blah. 100-foot radial, 100-foot radials, whatever. So if you want to operate in VK, Zone 29 is better than Zone 30. Northern Zone 30 is mostly better than Southern Zone 30. VK9 any trumps all with a good operator. VK7 is last on the list and probably last on the list anywhere in the world. So why contest for VK7? Well, for me it's fun. You also can get 1,000,001 pieces of paper. I got 2 folders of those. They're all certificates. I want to comment about 5.9 and all that. There's a debate from time to time about giving realistic reports. Now, I'll give you a realistic report, but outside the contest. I'll plug in an attenuator and you can do your test and I'll tell you what the differences are. Otherwise, you'll need to know the calibration of my S-meter. You'll need to know whether I'm reading it accurately or not. You'll also need to know what my antennas are, whether I'm using a preamplifier or not. In other words, the so-called realistic reports are totally unrealistic. To do the job properly, you've got to do it scientifically. So I say, bugger that. Now there's then a move to get rid of 5.9, because everybody in contest gives everybody 5.9. So they say, why do that? It's a waste of time. And I say, please keep it, because my ears hear 5.9, they don't register that. All they register is listen very carefully because the next bit's important. So it's like a pre-trigger for the brain. Now, that's why it's better to send 59123 for the numbers of the thing for the contest than to send 595959123123. Because the brain is going, what is all this? In fact, don't repeat anything unless it's requested. Yes, I know I'm a bit of a hypocrite on that sometimes, but that should be your general rule. Don't repeat unless requested. What kind of station do you want? Set your radio budget. How much money have I got? Don't have to be rich, just what you've got. Then spend most of it on antennas. The vast bulk of it on antennas, 90% on antennas. Nearly all the transceivers made in the past few decades are quite capable. There's better ones or worse ones, but they're all more or less capable of doing the job. And you can get some of the very flashy ones on the second-hand market for a real bargain. Don't over-modulate or process the audio. Clean, clear, crisp audio is what you need. On CW, same thing. Make sure the signal's clean and don't send faster than you can receive. I take particular delight if I'm not really being serious in a contest. And there's some Russians who do this, and they're bloody dumb. They send it 45 words a minute, and they expect you to sit there, you know, that's RA, RA1, RA10C. So what I do is I go back to them at 40 words a minute. And it's amazing how many of them say, VK repeat, please. They can't read what they're sending. So I then up it to 45 and mess them about a bit. Interface the radio to the log. Pretty important. It's so easy to forget to change the band when you change the band on the radio. Let the radio tell the computer to change the band in the log. Okay, log checking. You've entered your log in Cabrillo format. It's a lovely name, isn't it, Cabrillo? Anybody know where the Cabrillo comes from? The log checking software and the process for producing that input to the log checking software was written by Trey Gerlow. And Trey at the time was attending a technical college which was called the Cabrillo Technical College along Cabrillo Road in California. So that's how it got the name. Your entry will be acknowledged if you put an email in correctly. Deadlines have changed dramatically in recent years, so be very careful. It used to be like 3 months after the contest. It's now like a week. The log will then be analysed and compared with the logs of other entrants. Results will be in an email so that you can go and access what's happened to your log. Now your log will be checked, and you will get a report that tells you what are nil. That means you're not in the log. You say you work VK7GN, but you're not in my log. Bad call means that you claim to work VK7GM when you work me, and it's obvious because the times correlate when they do the log checking. Uniques are where nobody else has worked them in the contest. So there's some level of uniques everybody works. They work their mate down the road and this sort of thing. So it's not a big deal, and mostly you're not penalised for it. It is sometimes an excuse used for penalising somebody who really has cheated in a way that nobody really wants to accuse them of cheating, but they do feel it would be good if they were chucked out of the results. Time or band violations apply to some of the operator stations. Stations who got your call wrong and stations who got your report wrong. And that is worth analysing. When you get that report, it's worth analysing. It tells you an awful lot about what's going wrong in the communication between you and other people. Everyone makes mistakes, so you're all going to get errors, and the trick is to minimise the errors. Now, on phone, I can get my error rate down between 1 and 2%. On CW, I'm not telling you, but it's terrible. Mistakes in some contests result in extra points being deducted. So beware of that. Study the reports and use them. That's my VK5GN station, and it's what's called single op 2 radio. What that means is that I've got 2 radios and I'm using both of them most of the time. So right in there, there's a little brass rod sticking up. If I put that in the middle, the left radio is on my left ear, right radio on my right ear. If I put it to the left, all the left radio is on both ears, right. And below it, there's a switch to do the microphone, the same system. Now what happens is that if I'm calling CQ on that, and you could just sit back and let the computer call CQ for me and I'll just have a bit of a rest. Well, you don't do that. You switch over onto that radio and you look for multipliers. So you've got that, say you're running on 20 metres on that one, you've got this one on 15 metres looking for multipliers. You've got 2 linears, they're both single tube linears. I try not to operate too far outside the rules. I've got a spare linear because they are the ones that mostly fail. Radios don't usually fail, but linears do. Here I've got switches which allow me to put any radio to any antenna to any radio. And the operating desk is actually on rollers, so you pull it away. If a crisis occurs, you can get round the back. Okay. That's the station operating in RD contest. You won't find 5GN in RD contest results, but you will find VK5 Barossa Radio Club. And this is one of the club members operating my HF rig. And it's another club member. We set up this as a VHF UHF entry. Note the comfortable chair and the air conditioner. RD contest is mainly what I call a run contest. There's not a lot of point in tuning around. Just find a clear frequency and bang away. With the 3-hour periods, it's even more of a CQ contest. In the olden days, when it wasn't 3 hours, you would run out of stations to work, so you'd have to go tuning around looking for any fresh meat that came up on the band and grab it quick. Plan to be on the high point bands of 160 and 23 centimetre and up. Plan the night time for triple points. There's 3-hour blocks, so you can make it so you get a little bit of sleep in the middle. Move people for multiple points. It's not usually worth moving one person for 1 point. The logs for RD are N1MM, but it only works on HF. The VKCL is probably the better one, it's the one I use. 5DJ, I haven't looked at his lately, but he has one as well. If you're not calling CQ or calling a station, you are not scoring points. There's the log views. This is the VKCL. That's the N1MN. How am I going on time, Justin?
That's good. No, going well.
Sorry?
Going well.
So this is the VKCL. If you haven't used it before, it's not difficult to use. If I can make this thing
Just do an escape. So click the escape and do an alt tab to find. Oh no, there it is down the bottom. It's probably easier just to click on it down in the system tray. Yep.
Yep, got you. Okay. Having downloaded VKCL from the site, I've got a handout here which has got URLs on it that you can look up. First thing to do is to put your call sign in, obviously. The operator's call sign. And then that will allow you to select the contest and select what category you're going to go in. OmniRig is a system for communicating between the radio and the program. It works for a vast range of rigs, but you have to first download the OmniRig program itself. Again, that's listed in the handout. But having set up your radio, then you can move on to save that configuration and go into the logging program. It won't like what I'm about to do, but never mind, you'll have to put up with it. I said, okay. Try can't see it. That does it. Okay. I just wanted to get to the main logging window. And the logging window will up here would be, if I'd done that OmniLog, it would have a list of the bands that you could be operating on. To do the thing during a contest, all you do is put the call sign in there, put the exchange received in there, and any name that somebody might give you in there, and then just hit log the queue set. That's it. And it will tell you when you can work that again in the next 3-hour period. So the log will be telling you that. Make sure that your computer and the time is set to agree. My computers tend to be set to GMT. Saves me thinking. If I need to know what the local time is, I look at my watch. So it's as simple as that to operate the contest. Some of the stuff I've put on this handout, there's a couple of YouTube things. First one is, it's called Little Pistols Bigger Score, which is an excellent speech by an American operator about operating a small station. By contrast, the next one is K3LR Multi Contest Station Tour. If any of you have not seen K3LR Station, please get that on YouTube and watch it. This guy has got probably the most professional amateur radio station in the world. They have towers that go up to 275 feet. They have an operating position for every band, and on each band they have 2 transceivers, one for chasing multipliers and one for running. Those 2 transceivers are both ICOM 7851s. So in that station there are, what's 6 times 2? 12. 12 ICOM 7851s. Now this is a $10,000, $12,000 radio. So then there is each of those radios has its own linear, limited to American 1500 watt power, doesn't run excess power up there. They're monoband linears with their own power supply, homemade. and listening to Tim describe his station and talk about his station, listen to him saying things like, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursdays the antenna crew come in. Now this is every Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. It takes a bit of maintenance to look after all that aluminium. And then he talks about, in his bucket list, is to have a stacked 80-metre beam. He's got a dipole currently at 275 feet, and he's got heaps of vertical array stuff, but he wants. And they have tried before, I know they've tried before, and it didn't last very long. It lasted about as long as the 160-metre beam did in Finland. Don't know whether you ever heard of that one. 3-element beam on 160 metres. It was huge. And it was well designed and well engineered, but not enough. It fell down. But have a look at Tim's station. It really is. And they can get on 80 metres. They can operate the two stations within 8 kcs of each other. So you can have a station calling CQ on one frequency, and 8 kcs up, you could be working a multiplier. And he talks a little bit about how he achieves that, what it means to filter out all the noise and the rubbish that's in your station. I've got a reference to a thing called Contest University, which is an American, it's run during Dayton and various conventions, but there's some excellent files in there. Just go in and have a look if you want to find out more about logging. VK contest log, the OmniRig, N1MM, and some other stuff on there. If you have any problem with any of it, just give me a call and I'll be quite happy. Or if you have trouble getting your rig to work with the VKCL or any other logging program, just give me a call and I'll help you sort it out. So that's HF contesting in a nutshell. It's supposed to be fun. I mean, I have found it's fun. I've also found that when I was in a very high stress job, if I was operating one of these things, I was focused on radio. And all the stress of the work just went out that window. And so it was very good for me. Now I'm older, I can't do all these things. I can't stay up all night any longer. I just start falling asleep. I did fall asleep once, years and years and years ago, on one contest, and I must have been either hitting or holding the CQ key. And Tina, S50A, sat on the frequency calling me until I woke up. I said, "Oh good, you've woken up at last." Oh shit. The other joke one, I talk about practice. You can practice this stuff, particularly on CW. There's lots of programs for it. And I was operating one of these things, which is a contest. You feel like you're operating in a contest. And Linda called me for dinner. I'm sitting there operating my little contest. And I said, yeah, I've got a run going here. She said, "You do know it's only a program, don't you?" Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, any questions? That's good.
Is that two radio set up a different class of in the competition?
SO2R.
When so it is a different class.
No, that's single operator.
Yep.
2 radio is standard single operator.
Right.
But you will be multi-band.
Sure.
So you'll be single op multi-band, all band. But no, it's not a separate category. And some people can do it and some people can't. I can do it on phone. I can do a little bit on CW, but I can't do it very well on CW.
That OmniRig software, does that work for any radio, or does that work for only certain types of radios?
It works for the vast majority of radios, but I'm sure you'll be able to find one it doesn't work for. But most of them, what radio have you got?
I can T73 with TVIS?
No.
Not that.
Not that then, okay.
Most of the standard stuff like icon transceivers or VHF transceivers or whatever, that sort of stuff.
Anything in the last 20 odd years, probably.
Yeah, more or less.
Yep.
More or less. I think there's a few very recent ones that maybe it still hasn't quite incorporated, but most of them are using a standard. Yaesu have pretty well standardised what their stuff is. Icon have pretty much standardised what it is. So even if there isn't a specific radio, you can try one of the other ones. Any other questions? Otherwise, I shall hand it over to Ricky.
Show our appreciation, please. And Martin, we've got a few thank yous from our online viewers as well, so they're watching the stream. So
Oh, good, we've got the whole world at our fingertips here. You've got to be wired for sound.
Thank you very much. Thanks heaps, Martin. I feel a bit... You've covered almost everything. You've been reading my notes. So...
That's fine.
Go away. There's mine down there as well. Okay. Okay, so when I try and fill in a few of the gaps that sort of are maybe a bit sort of more towards UHF, VHF, Martin's did a pretty good job of covering pretty much all that. Why the contest? No one really seems to know sort of why. Look, there's a few things there. We got, as Martin said in his last thing, it's sort of to have a bit of fun, which I think is good. You can learn some new skills, get to know people, and get to know the operation of your station and how well it works and sometimes how badly it works. Contributes to the collective group, like the club or the state or whatever. As Martin alluded to, I don't have a folder that thick. I probably have 2 or 3 certificates, but some wall art's always good, and to sort of win and get your name in the magazine's always sort of pretty cool. Winning's always nice. The contests there are pretty much the ones that the WIA sort of endorse. Big on the Remembrance Day, John Moyle, and of course the field days and the Ross Hull Memorial, which this year I've tried to have a go at I think all of those, and so far not going too badly. But they're all sort of pretty popular ones that I think a significant number of people in this room have been involved with, especially the RD. So how to get involved? If you're new, just sort of keep your ear to the ground and maybe ask sort of people. I became involved, I think, by just listening to a bit of banter on 2 metres and 70 centimetres, thinking, oh, what's all this all about? And you sort of listen to some people, and I can't remember who the people were, but they sort of sounded sort of very pro, and thought, oh, well, let's sort of try and learn a bit. I was probably pretty much in the second. I sort of didn't really jump in to try and win, but thought I'd just pop in and gave out a few contacts, and then decided this was sort of pretty cool fun, so I thought I'd have a bit of a go at trying to get a bit better at it, and yeah, offering assistance to new people, because we're all sort of new at some point, and it's nice to sort of take someone under your wing and sort of maybe show them a bit, and they could well be the next sort of contest champion. So the few things you don't need to do to be good at VHF, UHF contesting, having one of those probably would be nice, but you don't really need it.
Yeah, that's tricky, Stitch.
Yeah, I wish. Tell the uni to keep their eye on it. So lots of people think you need big antennas with rotators and stuff. You really don't. An Omni will work just quite well. Don't need amplifiers. Position. With sort of VHF, UHF, always just trying to get into a good spot. Multi-mode radios are nice, but 2 metre handhelds, 2 metre mobiles are just great. New flash radios, again, are just nice to have, but you don't need them. Of course, QSL cards. I think probably one of the easiest way to get into doing it is to just jump in your car and just go up the mountain or go somewhere sort of nice and maybe make a bit of a day of it, have a bit of a picnic lunch and sort of play radios.
Not up the mountain, that's where you'll be.
Yeah, shh. So, what is required, there's a few things there that I'm sure everybody sort of can relate to. Have to be sort of pretty enthusiastic, probably a mild bit of silliness as you get into it a bit further, especially the guy with the bottles, like, wow, that's pretty keen. Try and sort of stay cool, like most of the contests, especially on VHF and UHF, they're pretty sort of friendly, there's not too much arguing for channels and stuff.
Friendly. Every man for himself sort of thing.
I've heard some of the contests on HF, trust me, ours are pretty tame one.
Quite polite, really.
Maybe when you don't press the mic button, there might be a few things muttered under one's breath, but no, that's all in the spirit. So look, I think the biggest motivation, trying to get your gear organised. Like, we're all a bit sort of slack. I know I am. Sometimes it's like the OD contest in 2 weeks, and I've got tons of things to do. But I'm sure probably nearly everybody here has the same thing to do.
You're trying to lure us into a false sense of security with this bit of a presentation.
You reckon?
Knowing your tactics over the years. Yeah, all the multipliers.
Just have to hear
Send
just,
them out.
just have to hear the JUF on the bands. That's what we need. So look, need to obviously have
that call sign.
yeah, be willing to have a bit of a go. Some patience, to obviously, because everybody's new. So sometimes it's very easy if you've been doing a few contests to sort of, like Martin alluded to sort of get into a bit of a groove and sort of do exchanges really quickly, and sort of new guys will go, whoa, 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 what's, whoa, whoa, whoa. Sort of don't want to be that person. So sometimes got to be prepared to just sort of take it easy and explain to people how it all works. And we've all made oopses with logs, so just sort of bear with people and make it all sort of work. I think it's good to obviously have bands be used. You know, they'll use them or lose them. And again, supporting the sort of a collaborative effort for everybody and meeting new people. In fact, I quite often only talk to people once a year, and it's normally sort of August, sort of second week in August. So. In fact, I speak often to Ron Mann, and it's normally, oh, it must be RD contest time again. And competitive spirit, it is a contest after all. So, probably a little bit of overlap with some of these points. Two sort of types of the sort of VHF contesting, they're sort of field day type things. An opportunity to get out and about from your normal station. You can do different categories, 6 hour or 24 hours. 24 hours in the mountain, eh, Hayden?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, off you go.
Let's do it. No, we'll do it.
Different categories, QRP, phone, CW, digital. That's what a lot of the other guys have done, the roving, where you sort of jump in your car and go from different grid squares. It can be sort of quite fun. Probably a different sort of whole thing, the field day to sort of normal contesting. And then of course you can operate from your home station as well. And I think for all of the VHF, UHF contests, you can sort of do one or the other and sort of whatever works. You know, sometimes crazy people go up the mountain, and we just like to have people sort of come out into their shacks and sort of come on. So, well, I think there's portable can be sort of good fun. Can be. So here's a couple of pictures of Murray's field day thing. So you don't have to have it overly complex. That sort of works remarkably well. So just basically taking a handheld to an elevated spot or mobile radio, or you can take a van full of Yagi antenna, network laptops, microwave dishes, transverters, masthead amps, generators, heaters, and you'll end up being in the disturbed individual category. Like a few of us in this room.
Boys knows where to field that.
Well, that's right. Yeah, who else would be in the snow on the mountain? So log keeping, probably be a little bit of overlap with what Martin alluded to, but there are a couple of items. The paper logs are pretty much discouraged now, so that they can do like log cross-checking and things with a Cabrillo format, which is pretty cool. Paper logs have probably got still a little bit of a place in respect to sometimes if you go portable, like guys want to do a bit of soda stuff and they don't want to take a notebook, maybe you could just take a notepad or enter stuff in your phone, but then maybe be prepared to sort of do post-contest entry into the VKCL software, which works pretty well. The VKCL software is really sort of quite good. As Martin alluded to, it works with OmniRig, which is really good because it really sort of avoids log errors. VK5GN does his logger, which apparently now supports OmniRig. I've not used that for a few years. I used to use it. It was really good, and then I got introduced to VKCL and sorry, VK5GN, I'm a traitor. There's N1MM logger, and there's a QRZ logger up as well, and I think Ham Radio Deluxe does some logging, but I'm not familiar with those. I'm sure Ham Radio Deluxe would do it, but certainly not cheap. That's pretty much the same page that Martin alluded to. Just pick out the sort of contest, and you can either, for the VHF ones, normally you enter your grid square in there, and which particular category. So that's again the main page. A little tip that I picked up, and I'm sure others that have played VHF contesting, remember that all FM contacts are green. So if you log a contact and you press enter and you're on UHF, VHF and it's not green, you've made an oops and you've defaulted to the standard SSB. It's normally only about 4 or 5 contacts in, you actually look at the thing and you sort of go, oh crap. So then you need to go back and quickly.
Can I just say, that's when you fix it.
That's right, that's right. I mentioned that
3 hours later, you haven't remembered it.
Or run OmniRig.
Or you speak 3 hours later, that contact I had back with you 6 hours ago.
Fix it when you realise it's wrong.
So look, there's lots of stories I'm told people can talk about contest logging software where you are sure you've worked someone on a particular band and the computer says no. And sometimes it's just too hard. As Martin alluded to, over on the right hand side there's a little cut off bit which shows the band that you're on, how many QSOs you've done, and as you change band on your radio that little thing jumps up and down. Make sure you're on the right band and of course the right mode, which is pretty helpful. 3 little bits sort of in a bit more detail, the OmniRig sort of setup, which obviously you need to, as Martin said, download and install as a separate thing. And then there's the OmniRig settings. You can have 2 radios, which sort of works quite well. I just had mine set up for the ICOM 9100, which is pretty good because you can work from 160 metres to 23 centimetres and it remembers. There is a way of setting up transverter switching, and I haven't made that go yet, so that's a bit more of a detailed view of the contact summary. Okay, so we've all heard about grid squares. In VHF and UHF contests, they're sort of used as a bit of a method of determining distance of the contact. I'm pretty sure it basically works on the centre of each grid square. So it's all sort of quite clever. The easiest way to do it is to just get an app. And as you can see that one there, that app called Ham GPS, which will spit out to quite a number of places, probably almost approaching the one we saw at Gibbs Tech that time, Justin, where if you take 3 steps you're actually in another grid square.
Yeah. It was a very interesting talk, that one.
Well, yes. Well, look, it's pretty important to know what your grid square is, and the easiest way, I'm sure pretty much everybody would have an app to discover what that is. Okay, so
3 cheers for Baldrick.
3 cheers for Baldrick indeed. So you need to have a bit of a plan. As Martin alluded to, having a plan is good. Probably a few things are sort of familiar to me, and I'm sure they're familiar to people in this room. Have a test run, make sure everything's all sort of working. Don't rely on memory, because you discover that an antenna's not working very well on the day of the contest, and you really should have probably not got that far. The log keeping software, if you're familiar with it, then it's not so bad, but if you're going to try something new, then probably have a few dummy runs. Have a bit of a rest if you plan to do the 24 hours. As Martin said, as you get older, it gets harder and harder to stay up all night. I always keep a bit of a notepad sort of for scribblings of antenna headings for if we work in the microwave bands and even 23 centimetres of where you need to point to work different stations. Sometimes you'll be trying to call Gary down there and you're pointing the wrong way, so you need to make sort of notes of where people are. If you discover a logging issue, fix it now. Is it now? And it's amazing, sometimes you can be looking at a log and something will pop into your head, you'll go, I just worked Justin on 5.7 gigs. It doesn't have 5.7 gigs. So I'll make it blue. So have as many bands going as you can to try not miss a random contact. Now, for those that have done a bit of VHF, UHF contesting, having 6.2, 70, 1296, 2.4, 3.4 and 10 gigs all going at the same time can be quite interesting. You wouldn't think that many people would come up on those microwave bands in VK7, but trust me, when you're just trying to write down the exchange with someone on 2 metres, the other 3 bands will fire up and you'll miss it. I like Martin's idea of the different bands in headphones. That sounds great. I just have to sort of try and have as many radios and you get to know where they have the speakers above the radio so you can hear where the noise comes from. A few people here would probably attest to this, that I've texted them and said to come on, coerce your mates into coming on and helping out the group. Sometimes if things are a bit slow, it's marvellous, you can text people or ring them and say, is your radio working? Time is really important. Again, it's pretty important. Look for the double point opportunities and maximise in the RD contest. I think we've all probably fallen into the trap of you hear someone on, you make a contact and you go, oh, I should have waited 10 minutes and it would have been triple points. Of course, that's the time to make sure you've got all the 23 centimetre and a gov gear and the skeds all sort of organised. It's amazing. Triple point, like 23 centimetres above each contact is 6 points. Double points times 3, yeah, so 6 points. So we've got 23 people. We've had 23 on 23, so we could make some big scores if they're all on between 1 and 6. So a few things that I've learnt. Preparation. You can never do too much preparation.
Richard, Ben's just put in there just before you go on. Yay, and when Richard texts you at 3 AM in the morning, I get grumpy.
I've never texted him at 3. I might have texted him at 1.
Right, okay. It's 1 o'clock.
That's fine. But Ben's always been pretty good and come on. So you need to prepare, read and understand the rules. As Martin alluded to, they change, and sometimes the rework times can change, and you can assume that you're trying to work every 2 hours and it's now every 3, or vice versa. Don't sit in the pile up waiting for that last call in the group. Move on and get them later. Ask me how I know this. It's very easy to hear a whole bunch of people on a particular channel and you just think, I'll work these couple of guys and then I'll move on. Yeah, don't, because you'll be stuck there for ages. Listen to the little voice in your head that just says move on, come back. Sensible food and drink, like everybody knows what works for them, whether it's caffeine, whether it's whiskey or whatever. Posture, move about. Yeah, it's amazing how you can sort of sit in a chair. Mine's probably not very ergonomic. I liked Martin's setup where you had the computer in the middle and the 2 radios each side, so you can just move side to side. I sort of had laptop on this side and a couple of radios here, and it's amazing how after 24 hours you realise that you probably shouldn't have done that. And yeah, try and keep awake from the wee small. Sometimes idle conversation in the wee small hours can keep you awake, sometimes not. Sometimes, I remember calling Murray a few times and he was asleep. But anyway.
Well, but can I add there? He was asleep, but he's
Yeah, he still won, I know. Thanks for reminding me of that, Justin. Just like him, I guess. Age and youth, you know.
Not that we're bitter about it or anything. But
No.
I want to check his radio for a recorder and a playback.
So check your log entry and check it again before you hit save. If you're using OmniRig, it takes away a few of the doubts. But just make sure you haven't rolled a finger on a key and typed in, a wrong call sign, because the beauty of modern technology is it'll repeat it for you and it'll copy the error especially with grid squares. If you get someone's grid square wrong, it'll just keep getting it wrong. It's just great. So here's a couple of field day portable stations. It's a bit snowy up the mountain. I don't even quite know how that was open actually, but so that's up. I think it was probably the first crack at a winter field day. There was a few. I think I had a 23 centimetre Yagi, but I don't think I had a feed on. I think there might have been a small packing and error. Hands up those that have not gone portable and forgotten a connector or a lead or something. That was pretty cool. I was able to work into Launceston on 10 gigs, which was pretty flash. The other photo on the right is a few of us on a hill just near Kingston, trying to work into ZL one early morning before work. I think that photo was at about 6 a.m-ish. So it looks all quite flash, but I don't think we worked on any of the high bands. I think we worked into ZL on 2 metres and 70 centimetres. I don't think we made it on 23 centimetres.
Not from there.
Not from there. But nonetheless, there's a lot of kit there. Passers by just have a good look. They're quite amused. Another couple of field day ones. On the left is our Murray and I went portable for the winter field day not long back with a van that's sort of specifically set up for playing radio. It's got a 10 metre telescopic mast that comes out of the middle of it. And we've done a bit of work in making an operating position in there for 2 people that can stay nice and toasty warm with the aid of a heater and a generator.
It was occasionally 3.
Occasionally 3, yeah. Yeah, we had to have a quick deodorant check before the third person was allowed in, but it was really good, worked really well. Although when the sun goes down in the winter at 1100 metres above sea level, it gets cold really quickly. Ask us how we know that. Another photo on the right there is Hayden and I went portable up the east coast. What was the name of the place, Hayden?
3 Thumbs Lookout.
3 Thumbs Lookout, yeah, where we worked into ZL on 2 metres 70 centimetres, 1296 and 2.4, which was pretty. 2.4 was CW. That was yeah, that was interesting. It's good fun. So here's a couple of stations. I'm sure I don't know who they belong to, but maybe that's that one you talked about, Martin. That
No, I don't know those.
but it was just, you don't need to have that sort of station. It'd probably be nice. So look, there's a few results from how we've done in the contest. That was the 2018 contest. Now, just of late we've sort of done quite well. It's a bit hard to see, but that one, Vince won that one, I think. Steve was in sort of third, and Herman was then in sort of, all the highlighted ones are all VK7s, which was pretty good. We had a pretty good team that year with Vince and Murray and myself. We managed to sort of win that one, but there was lots of VK7s, so hopefully it's good to see so many on. A few little bit of trivia from the 2020 RD contest. The first 3 place getters were VK7s. QRP section was taken up, third was Ben, VK7BN, and then the mix was VK7 KPC, and then in the 2019 RD contest, I think we had sort of first, third, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, 19th and 20th, which was probably a pretty reasonable effort for that sort of contest. So we're doing sort of pretty well, I think. A few of the magazines I've been reading at home from 2011, 2012, there wasn't a lot of VK7s sort of showing up in many of the VHF contests, so I think we've sort of turned a bit of a corner. We're just upsetting all the others. They'll probably ban us from going in it or something. So the contest's over. What do you do now? Normally the last round, especially for the RD, is people sort of, normally when they make the last contact and it's all over, so I thank everybody for their efforts, and it's all a bit sort of calmer and everyone's blood pressure gets back to normal. That last sort of half hour in the RD is normally a bit pretty sort of full on. Double check your log. Remember those notes you made at 3 AM, the contact should have been on SSB, not FM, etc. If you haven't changed, change it now. Check your log again, and there's I said, look for silly things that look a bit out of the ordinary, that you know people haven't got a particular band. Just then submit the log before you get up and move, because pretty much all those contests you have the ability with VKCL to be able to hit submit log and have it go, and you'll get an acknowledgement via email. It has been a bit problematic on a few occasions, but yeah, sort of try and get that done, then you don't have to worry about it. Switch the radios off, chill out, and perhaps serve of your favourite beverage. That
Is the end.
is all she wrote. So,
Questions for Trick?
questions? Make them easy, please.
I'm going to ask a really obvious one. Presumably, when you make a contact, it's exactly the same as we were doing in the winter field day, which is just 5-9 number and call sign.
Look, they're all pretty much exactly that, Lee. The only one that's a little bit different, that's quite unique, is the RD contest, where your exchange is not a sequential number that starts at 1 and goes up. It's actually, it used to be, but then they changed it because, as I'm sure you're aware, in a lot of the contests, if you start off a bit late or whatever, it can be pretty sort of scary if you're going to give someone 001 and someone's going to give you 653. You're like, oh crap. So a lot of people, they thought it was a bit psychological, so they thought, because it was the friendly contest, I think the plan was the exchange now you give is the number of years that you've been licensed. So you could have 6 contacts or 800 and no one would know, and I think it probably makes it a little bit more, you don't sort of drop your bundle when you think you're doing all right working 200 and then you work someone that's got 600 and you go, that's it, I'm going home.
And it's pretty cool when you hear someone say 59060 or something like that, and you're like, 60 years you've been licensed.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, there's a few.
And then you find out it's a club station.
Yeah.
We've got a few in VK7 that have been licensed sort of quite long, so it's sort of pretty cool. But yeah, look, as far as I'm aware, all of the VHF, UHF ones are all sequential and all different, except the RD.
So mine would just by my one from these.
Yeah, so you start at 001 and sort of just go up. Yeah. So there was I'm sure there was a point where they had in the rules that it didn't have to start at 001, and there was a bit of shenanigans going on where people could sort of play games and have a little bit of a mental edge by actually starting at 300.
And I always, if I hear someone say in RD 001, I take the time to say, thank you for joining in the contest.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's their first year, it's their first time, on the contest. So
That's right. That's right.
encourages them for next year.
Yep. So, anybody else have any questions?
Just a comment, Richard. One of the things probably you do is well before the contest starts is update your contest software. And one of the key things that Mike's built into VKCL is it goes off and sees whether there's an up-to-date.
Because obviously the rules are updated and things.
Because you can be operating the contest, and if you're operating with an old version and change the rules and it's not reflected, you potentially end up.
And you can also mess a lot of other people up as well. So,
but VKCL really does. It goes off and checks, and also both VKCL with Mike, AAV, 3AAV, and 5DJ. They operate in the contest.
Yeah, that's right.
And when I've contacted them, you thank them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when you can work on it.
Because you realise
using
the
the software
guys that have actually written this software.
Or the contest manager, if you hear them on the edge as well.
I think another important thing to mention too along that line is to make sure that your PC clock is set accurately. I know most of the VHF guys that sort of plays weak signal stuff with WSJTX and whatever, they've normally got either sort of GPS sort of synchronisation things, or they use net time and sort of within a few sort of milliseconds of the right time. But yeah, you just want to make sure, because if it's right up to the knocker, you don't want to be sort of entering someone's call sign and it just goes, sorry, the contest's finished. So yeah, just make sure your clock is adjusted sort of right.
So one other question as well then, just because again it's my first time, can we still work different locators? So for example, last time in a field day, worked with you guys for an hour or two, and then I transited down to Rosny Hill. Is that still allowed? That's
what you're called a rover if you do that. So there's different categories that you can go in. and you can go in multiple categories. So you can spend a few hours roving around giving out numbers in different places, or you can then go home and sort of, you know, it's probably best not to try and enter too many categories, but yeah, like sometimes it's good fun to go out and about.
So that might seem like silly questions, but
No, they're not silly.
No questions are silly.
I'll just add one thing on the log. The VKCL is a post-event section where you can actually do your log later, because I'm like a hopeless person, one finger poker, and there's 10 contacts gone by the time I went to do it by keyboard, so I
don't
still
think you're
do
alone
it.
there, Gary. Quite often you'll actually hear someone enter it, you'll hear it going, VK7, yep, SSB,
Yeah.
yep.
But I'm too slow. I'm even too slow for that. I'm faster writing. Admittedly, it's a bit of a pain if you do a big log, but I can scribble faster and make more notes faster with a pen and paper,
Yep.
and then put the log in later.
Yep.
It's
No, that's,
like the way I go, because
Yeah.
I'm just so hopeless, and I'm in a little bit of a confined area to a certain extent. For
no, as long as you can read your shorthand.
yeah, and sometimes you can correct. People that have made a mistake with their keyboard take a while to get back in there and correct, and you've already done that
You can
yourself.
actually just scribble it with a pen and write on it. Yeah.
So just use a different coloured pen for a
No,
different band or whatever. And
That's a
blah,
good
blah.
plan. I think the portable guys, I think, often do that because they don't want to take a laptop up to the top of the hill or something. So. Cool.
Can we do a quick pop quiz? Who's actually doing the RD in a couple of weeks?
Cool. Take a photo.
Oh,
mate.
who's not doing it? No, that's good. That's good. Give it a crack.
Cool bananas.
what they'll say on, sorry.
No, you go.
What they'll say on handwritten notes, yeah, I'll attest to the fact that my handwriting is awful, so I'm going to be using the software, because the last time when I did handwritten notes last time, I ended up losing 40 points in the last contest because I just fumbled the locator. And so yeah, errors come back at the end. I lost like a
I've all done that. Hands up those that have not got the thing back from the contest checker and go, I don't remember working him.
Another point to make with contesting software is know how to use it without a mouse, because you can get way faster that way.
Yeah.
Use the F keys.
And you don't need to type VK in, you just need to put in the
You
number.
can actually, there is a tick box in there that it'll assume VK, and yeah, just the enter key in VKCL just goes for 20
And assume
fields.
5.9.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the other.
Unless someone like on HF, like on
Gives you-
VHF,
gives
it's
you
not so
4.5,
bad.
yeah.
But if someone gives you 5.7, you've got to make sure you log it as 5.7, because otherwise, you know, ask me how I know this.
Did you want to go through the common frequencies for this, for those that are not sure that what we use?
Look, I've prepared something that's going on the broadcast on Sunday. What we're going to try and do this year, because we've had a lot of people on 2 metres and 70 centimetres, probably 2 metres has got very busy. So what I'm proposing this year, a few of us, is that not only do we have channel 50 or 146.500, that we also use 146.525. So if you set up a bit of a scan group to just add that frequency to it, and depending on the busyness, maybe on 439 as well, go to 439.025, so that if you come along and there's like a string of people working, you can just sort of flick up another channel, and if a few people know that that's going to be a thing, then you know you can maybe call on, if someone's busy on channel 50, you can call on 146.525, and chances are there'll be somebody listening, and you can sort of flick between the two and maybe keep things a bit more fluid and a bit more mobile. So there's propose those two frequencies, so 146.500 and 146.525, 439 and 439.025. I think on 6 metres, 52.525 is probably a good one, unless anyone wants to use SSB, so it would be 50.150. Unless you're an H call, we can go to 52.150. And of course the others really 1296 and up is pretty much just FM on 1296 150, and the frequencies above that pretty much the 150 sort of mark. So, but I think we're going to try and hopefully hear a few people on HF and get the band dance happening. That's a bit hard to nail down frequencies because they can be in use, but I think if we employ our reasonably successful
explain
technique.
what the band dance is, 'cause there's people
The band
who
dance.
don't.
Okay, the band dance is something that probably comes back to a bit of a Vince. I think Vince is sort of the band dance owner. A few of us got together and we thought, oh, while we were chatting on 2 metres, why don't we all see if we can work on 10 metres? So we nominated a frequency of 28,470 or something. So before we knew it, there was like 10 or a dozen people there. So we all worked each other and we went, oh, what about 15 metres? 20 metres? 40 metres? 80 metres? 160 metres? And it's amazing how many points you can rack up, especially on 160 metres where it's all double points. There's a fairly fine line between a well-oiled band dance machine and a complete catastrophe, because if you have too many, then you fall into the old trap of sitting around waiting for contact. So I think last year I remember there was a few groups that would sort of like, you'd stroll across these few channels on HF and you'd hear the same sort of few people. So there's no real probably sort of hard fast rules with that, just sort of try and get on it. But yeah, I think the band dance works pretty well. Vince's idea worked really well. Really well.
It's probably worth saying, VK7 has taken out the RD for the last 5 to 6 years, and I think the states are starting to realise how we're doing it.
Yeah.
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 They do know how.
Because VK6 was very close to us last.
Nobody was nowhere near us last year. We were miles ahead of them.
VK6 was as close as anyone's got.
Yeah, but VK6 used to own the RD maybe 10 years ago.
They
Doing
did.
the same thing we're doing.
But look, I think the trick is, look, as I said, on 23 centimetres particularly, we've had 23 on 23. So if we have, if you had half of those, if you had 12 people come on every 3 hours and work out all the other 12, especially between 1 and 6, that would just be a huge score just in itself. So it's just one of them things, you know, we just want to try and get people to spare what time they can and come on whenever they can. And if they need any help, like I know sometimes it sort of seems a bit like we sort of know what we're doing, or we appear to know what we're doing. Sometimes it can be a bit sort of daunting, but if you're not sure, just sort of sing out and ask, and we're happy to sort of show you. Particularly the software, I think, is pretty important to just be reasonably familiar with that. But look, again, most people here are pretty helpful, and if new people that we know come on and, you know, are sort of not too sure, I'm sure everybody will sort of take a bit of time and sort of show them the way. Help them out, because that's what it's all about. You don't want to be scaring people off.
Everybody knows about our cunning band dance plan now because it's all been streamed.
That's okay.
Oh no.
We're just experts at it.
Oh, we're going to have to dump it.
So
But,
we'll just start at the top and work our way down this time.
Oh look, I think it works well, and again, it's very hard to plan it, and again, if it gets too big, then it just gets unwieldy. But I think
The concept was that we were using that on 2 and 70 you can talk to the same people.
yeah,
And
well actually you could do a
HF,
band dance.
They were unused bands because there was no propagation anywhere.
Yeah,
And so we just like, let's use them like a VHF channel because it's all
Groundways,
kind of
local.
ground wave.
and
that
I
was the
think,
concept.
as you said, at one point there we had a group of us that were actually going from 160 metres to 23 centimetres and working the same 10 people. You know,
And things can get a bit quiet sometimes at 2 or 3 a.m. once you've worked everyone. So jump on HF on 80 metres or something and
yeah,
find people that are there, because there's always someone there calling to just keep because as Martin said, if you're not calling CQ or making contacts, you're not scoring points. So
that's exactly right. No, just all in all, have some fun. That's the main important thing, is to have some fun.
teams.
Ah,
Because
teams.
we only
Good
had one
point.
VK7 team, we could have more teams.
Feel free to form teams. I think you need to. I think you probably need to let them know before the contest
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to register a team, and it can be, I think, 3 or I don't.
3 people.
Yeah, 3.
3 people.
And look, there's a lot of people in this room that have scored really, really, really well in contests, so there'd be no real reason why theoretically we couldn't have
Bit of
3 or 4
competition
winning
in
teams.
VK7.
Yeah. So but look, that's a good plan, and you can always have sort of new guys can sort of join teams, or yeah, I think that's a good idea. Teams are good. We've had a pretty good team the last couple of years. So.
can they be geographically separate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The three
Yeah.
people separately operate.
Right.
But
And then
they
all
combine
their scores are combined.
Right. Okay. Cool.
But it doesn't have any.
It's all about prestige. There's no prize for a team.
No.
It's about prestige.
Correct.
You do
Oh,
get
there's a certificate. There's a certificate.
Yeah.
The last year there was only 3 teams across the whole of VK.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
But I think too, there's. Well, I think too, there's always the club station that people can activate now. Like depending on.
You can only operate one call sign.
At any one time.
you know how Martin was talking about cheaters earlier? Yeah, well,
In that whole game.
That's one of the rules.
that's one of them.
No, that's one of the rules. So, yeah, can't operate if you've got multiple call signs. Sorry, you can't operate them in this contest.
Yeah.
And we learnt the hard way. Andrew Johns learned the hard way.
Okay. Oh, that's what he was doing. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
So with the teams, it's just still the 3 stations are operating exactly the same individually. It's just acknowledgement of the team and then the score.
So just basically, if you submit a team that's got yourself and Steve and Herman together, just at the end of it, what will happen is they'll just grab the 3 scores and add them together, and you just got to nominate a team name and
Come up with a funky team name.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Because what have we got?
Cronies plus ones. Long story, but Hayden's the plus one. Right.
Cool.
No worries.
We show appreciation, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Grab a coffee and ask any more questions.
It's just that you nominate the team in the contest.